Hello, my name is Asmita, your IELTS mentor here at Vedantu. No, you're not watching this in 2x, I'm just speaking very fast, but that's what I want you to be able to do as well. Talk as fast as me and as fast as native speakers. Now, we're getting there slowly and steadily, but before we do that, we need to know exactly what we are preparing for. Let me slow down now. What we're preparing for is the IELTS speaking test and not just a random speaking test. Obviously, every test is designed with different criteria and different parameters in mind. The IELTS serves the specific function of understanding whether or not you can communicate in a setting which is, for those of you taking the IELTS academic, an academic setting where you're in university talking to professors, trying to understand what is being taught to you and delivering course material or homework or projects in English. And you should also be able to communicate with peers, with other students studying with you, and in terms of day-to-day survival, talking to someone at the grocery store, at the gas station, stuff like that, right? So because the IELTS academic also keeps university at the center of what you are primarily going abroad to do, a lot of its questions, especially in the writing task as well, are very academically inclined, trying to gauge whether or not you can communicate in that particular context. Now, because of these parameters, you need to know exactly how you must prepare for the speaking and writing test of the IELTS to be able to get your desired band score. You might be a good English speaker, and normally, especially in and around your hometown, people might even know you as someone whose English is very good. People might come up to you and say, teach my son how to speak or teach my daughter how to speak so they can speak faratedar English like you do. You might be that person, but you can still do poorly in the IELTS simply because you don't know what the test is aimed at. I am going to tell you exactly this, which I'm going to do through the band descriptors that your examiners use to assess your speaking and your writing, okay? Now, when it comes to the reading and listening part of the IELTS, obviously there's one correct answer, or the key is not very difficult to make, because if you've listened to something, then obviously that is what's going to be the answer. If it's a multiple choice question, one of them is going to be the correct answer. If it's a complete the summary, then 2 or 3 words at max are going to be the correct answer. So there's no room for subjectivity is what I'm trying to tell you. Whereas in writing and speaking, anywhere in any kind of test, there's always room for subjectivity. What that means is, someone might think what you've written is good, but some other person might be able to find some flaws in what's written. No two people will completely agree on what they think a perfect answer to a particular question is. And that is why there are many detailed band descriptors that are given to examiners to equip them to be able to judge your answers as objectively as possible. Now that you've understood this, let's go right ahead. But, very quickly, I want you to know that I get it. As someone who's been through everything that you're going through right now, I understand how stressful and exciting this time of your life is. But the thing is, what we don't realize is every decision, every micro decision that we're taking right now has sort of this domino effect on our lives. Everything that's going to happen, be it your job, your career, where you stay, where you live, how your life's going to turn out is dependent at this very point in your life. Okay, so I'm not saying that you can take a disastrous decision and completely ruin your life. No, everything works out for the best at the end of the day. But still, if you want to fulfill those dreams and desires that you have, you can do it with more ease and with a lesser stress if you have someone who knows this process to guide you. I didn't have that guidance. I did everything that I had to do with the college application process completely by myself, and I know how that has impacted me negatively. Now that I think about it, I would have done a lot of things differently in my life if I just had someone, an adult with knowledge about this, to just push me in the right direction and give me the information and support that I required. Because I didn't receive it, I know the value of it, and that's why I'm trying to tell you that if you're getting this opportunity right here for free on a platter, then please make use of it. You are getting really good career counseling at this point. And if you're actually serious about studying abroad, then you need to fill out this form. Now, let me tell you, if you are serious, that means you've already done the groundwork. You've thought about how you're going to apply, where you're going to apply, which countries you're looking at, which courses you're looking at, what your budget is. If you have information regarding all of this, and if you've had this discussion, this preliminary discussion with your parents, only then fill out this form. Once you do that, somebody will get in touch with you within 48 hours and ideally in 24 hours itself, and they will understand your side of the story, what your aspirations are, what is it that you're planning to do, and they're going to put you in touch with somebody who's an expert at that. For example, if you want to do medicine abroad and you're looking at a country like Georgia, then you're going to be put in touch with an expert who knows how to send our Indian students to Georgia to study in their budget. All right, so you are going to be put under the right guidance. All you need to do is fill this form. Yes, it's going to be a little detailed, it's going to ask you some questions, but that's why I told you, only if you're very serious about this entire process, then you need to fill out this form. Usually such career counseling is very expensive. You're getting it for free right now, so please do make use of it. Treat this as some elder sisterly advice, whatever you want to call it, okay? All right, coming back to what I was saying. Now, what is the key criteria for speaking? Number one is fluency, which I just messed up right now. But in my defense, I've been talking single-handedly non-stop. So, what is the key criteria for IELTS speaking? The IELTS speaking test is scored across 4 criteria, each worth 25% of the total score. So what are these 4 things? There is fluency and coherence. There is lexical resource. There is grammatical range and accuracy. Can I write as fast as I speak? Probably not. Finally, pronunciation, right? These are the 4 criteria, and these 4 criteria have details that are given to the examiner based on which the examiner assesses you. So there are many points under fluency and coherence based on which the examiner judges you. And if you want to look at it in that much detail, if you want to see exactly what's written for band 9, for band 8, for band 7, across these 4 criteria, then you can look up IELTS band descriptors online and you will get a PDF that has all of that information in a lot of detail, exactly what the examiners use to assess you. I'm going to tell you basically all of that in a summarized way, in a short way, all right? So number 1, fluency and coherence. What this means is your ability to speak smoothly, right? There are no roadblocks. It's not like you are getting stuck after every 2 words, logically and without unnatural hesitation. Please focus on the word unnatural here. The reason why unnatural has been added there is because hesitation otherwise while speaking is normal. We're not robots, we are not AI, we can't just come up with what to say exactly and regurgitate that. No, we do need to think about it. Our brain, our processor takes some time to figure out the best word or the best way to express a particular thought. So hesitation, a little bit of thinking, a little bit of is normal and it is encouraged, because if you don't have that normal human hesitation, chances are you're just going in with memorized phrases and responses, which shows that you don't really know the language, you've just memorized what to say, which will work against you, right? So unnatural hesitation versus natural hesitation, you need to clearly know the difference between these two. Unnatural hesitation is basically when you are trying to think of the right word for something. It's like you have the thought, you know what you want to say, but you're not able to say it because of lack of vocabulary or lack of grammatical knowledge. It's like when people who are just learning a new language, especially English, they tend to say things like, how do you say? That how do you say is an indicator of unnatural hesitation, in the sense that you don't know how to put this particular feeling or emotion or phenomena into words. You might know it in your native language, you don't know how to do this in English. That kind of hesitation will affect your fluency and coherence score. Natural hesitation to think about your thought itself is not going to work against you, all right? So here, what exactly are examiners looking for? Speaking at length without long pauses or excessive ums, okay? So if I want to think about something, if I want to change what I'm saying mid-sentence, I can pause, I can, this is a very natural pause, the one I just took, that's completely fine. But if you go blank for an extended period of time and then you're like, that's a problem in the IELTS, okay? And ers are fine. Nowadays, instead of a lot of people also use the word like as a filler. So some of these are okay, like I've already explained, but excessive use of like, you know what, like I like the other day, like went like shopping and like, I saw those like, what are those called? Like those pants. So this is an excessive use of like, and similarly, I watch movies, but I don't particularly watch. So this is an excessive use of avoid doing that. Using linking words and logical connectors. So this is highly encouraged. Linking words and connectors shows advanced knowledge of English. Actually, on the other hand, that's why as a result, I've given you lists upon lists of these. If you're new to the channel, make sure you go watch those videos. Endless resources available to you for free. Make use of them. Staying on topic and developing ideas clearly. So answering the question exactly, not giving some weird tangential answer that has nothing to do with the question or has very little to do with the question. Staying on point, answering each aspect of the question and whatever you want to say, saying it in a full-fledged, developed manner, not leaving things half-baked. That's what the examiners are looking for under fluency and coherence. Lexical resource basically just means the range of your vocabulary. And here, don't think of it in terms of having the most complex vocabulary, knowing the most difficult word to say in a particular situation. No, it has more to do with appropriateness. What are you using the appropriate word to use in that situation? It could be a simple word. It doesn't have to be something very complex, but as long as it makes sense, it fits perfectly, that means you have good range of vocabulary. And also accuracy is important. Have you used the word correctly as the right part of speech that it's meant to be? Is the tense or the SVC of it correct? That kind of overlaps with grammar. That's why I don't want to say that as an aspect here, but just basically knowing the meaning of the word and using it in the right context. For example, the example I like to give here is when Joey from Friends, was reading a review about his performance in the newspaper, and it said it was an abysmal performance, and he took that as a compliment because he didn't know what the word abysmal meant. He thought it was a compliment, all right? So that's an accuracy issue. Please drop what abysmal means in the comments here. What are examiners looking for? Variety of words and phrases, especially topic specific, right? That's what shows vocabulary range. That if I want to talk about tech, I know exactly what kind of words to use. When I have to talk about education, I know what kind of words to use. I can make that distinction in topic and I have a good range of vocabulary for both, right? Ability to paraphrase when you don't know a word. If you don't know the exact word for something, you can still explain the emotion, explain the feeling, explain the phenomenon, right? So, ability to paraphrase. Use of collocations, idioms and phrasal verbs. These are generally used by native speakers. So, if you're able to make use of these, that shows that you have advanced English proficiency. And I've also given you lists of these, so check out those videos as well. Moving on to grammatical range and accuracy, this is basically variety and correctness of sentence structures. And obviously accuracy here implies that you're able to apply the correct rules of grammar. Now, sentence structures means being able to use simple sentences and complex sentences. Complex sentences are those that start with a subordinating conjunction. They have a dependent clause and an independent clause. These are longer sentences useful for expressing more complicated and multifaceted thoughts. So your ability to use these will improve your grammatical range and accuracy score. Here, simple, compound and complex sentences, you should have all kinds of these, and ideally, when which is required, you can make that distinction as well. Use of tenses correctly and consistently, fewer grammatical mistakes. Now, pay attention here, it says fewer grammatical mistakes. It does not say no grammatical mistakes. That means that you can make grammatical mistakes and still get a band 9 for grammatical range and accuracy. How is that possible? The reason for that is even native speakers tend to make some grammatical errors, especially when it comes to stuff like preposition, and there are some, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if it comes to me through the course of this video, I will tell you. There are some mistakes that are so common, so normal, that we don't even treat them like mistakes. And if you make such grammatical mistakes, that's absolutely fine. No one's going to bat an eye, and you're still going to get a band 9. Okay, so make sure there are fewer. Make sure there are mistakes that, I'm not saying make sure you make mistakes, but even if you do, make sure they're not Indian mistakes. So, if you are preparing for this part of the speaking test or for this criteria specifically, look up things that Indians get wrong, and you can really make use of AI for this. Go to ChatGPT, say, hey, what are some like grammatical mistakes that Indians generally make? Make sure you're not making any of those mistakes, right? Okay. Now here, especially with subject-verb agreement, articles and preposition, like articles is a big one for Indians. For some reason, we just don't like using articles. So make sure you're using your articles the right way at the right place. And finally, number 4, the most misunderstood criteria is pronunciation. Here it means clarity, stress, rhythm and intonation. Nowhere does it say accent. So I don't see anywhere in any band descriptor that accent should be American or British or Australian or whatever, right? The accent does not play a role here as long as it does not affect the listener's ability to understand what you're saying. A lot of times when accent becomes a problem is when it's too heavy and it's too different from how the word needs to sound, which is not the case generally with Indians. The way we pronounce words is quite close to how Britishers pronounce it, because we've been a British colony for a very long time. So there's no issue there in understanding what we're trying to say in English, okay? This happens a lot with, let's say, South American speakers. They have the accent issue because their R's are rolled and they're like very dominant in their pronunciation, and that sometimes becomes an issue and listeners are not able to understand what they mean. So I wouldn't say this is a huge problem for Indians unless you have a very stereotypically Indian accent where the mother tongue influence is quite high. And this can be the case for those who've learnt English later in life, because you spent your entire life speaking a particular language and suddenly you're trying to pick up English. Obviously, you're going to sound a little bit like, it's going to sound a little bit like that language. For example, if you listen to white people say namaste, they can't say namaste, they say namaste, namaste, because their accent is going to play a role in their picking up a new language. Same thing happens to us, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just make sure that you're focusing less on accents and more on syllable stress. Which syllables are stressed in which words? A good example of this is, a lot of Indians might say psychology. But here the stress is different. It's psychology. It's a ko, that's stress, right? Psychology, technology, right? So understand how different syllables in a word are stressed, and then even in your own accent, as long as your syllable stress is in the right place, everyone's going to understand what you mean, okay? Stress, rhythm, intonation, whether you're able to inflect your voice the correct way to express whatever you're trying to say, all of that basic stuff, okay? Another thing that can be very useful here is connected speech. There's a video on that in the channel. It's literally called something like connected speech. So just look that up and make use of what I'm teaching you there. What examiners are looking for here is whether you are clearly understood, whether you're using the correct word in syllable stress, and use of intonation to sound normal. Don't sound robotic. Obviously, when you're talking, some amount of emotion is going to show through your voice, your inflection, your change in tone, all of that should happen naturally. It shouldn't be too exaggerated, but it shouldn't be monotonous either. So that was for speaking. Now, what are the key criteria for IELTS writing? Don't worry, a lot of it overlaps. So we're going to go through this quickly. Only 2 criteria are different. Obviously, pronunciation has nothing to do with writing. So that's not here. And neither does fluency. What are we looking at here instead? We are looking at, and the same way, it's 4 different things. The first thing is task achievement for task 1 and task response for task 2. What that means is, task 1 is going to be your summary or interpretation of some data, and your task 2 is opinion essay, right? So in task 1, have you achieved the task? What that means is, have you covered all part of the task? So for example, if you had a graph, have you covered all the important data points, all the important trends? Have you summarized everything that happens in the correct structure? Okay. Have you presented an overview, and have you used data comparisons appropriately, right? So basically everything that we had to do for analytical paragraph, same thing we have to do in task 1. Task 2, your task response should address all parts of the prompt. So the prompt has asked you to list both advantages and disadvantages, but you have only listed advantages. Even if you've done it in a phenomenal fashion, you haven't hit all the pointers in the prompt, so you're not going to get a good band for task response. Develops a clear position or opinion. You are always asked to give your opinion in task 2. So you need to make sure that your opinion is clearly expressed and it's not ambiguous. There's nothing left for the examiner to question. They know exactly where you stand. Supports ideas with examples and explanations. Examples is a big issue because nobody adds them for some reason. And you know why that's happening? That's happening because a lot of your practice happens through AI generation of answers. And if you get into the habit of doing that, AI can't draw from its personal life. It doesn't have any, right? So the examples are lacking because AI doesn't live through examples. We do as human beings. Everything we observe, everything we read, everything we learn, that's what shapes our opinion, right? So please cite examples, give explanations, and you can cite examples from your own life. It can be anecdotal because it's impossible for us to remember statistics or remember the exact names of studies that we've read. That can be challenging. So you can cite examples from your own life. Okay, coherence and cohesion is the next one. Very similar to fluency and cohesion, but here, no, fluency and coherence. But here, because we can't test fluency in writing, we have cohesion. What it means is logical flow and connection of ideas. Cohesion basically means connection of ideas, right? Coherence is whether you're coherent, logical. What are examiners looking for? Paragraphing. Your essay should not be one blob, right? There needs to be a basic intro, body, conclusion, structure. And I've given you templates for task 1 and task 2. So go look at those templates, how you're going to divide your thoughts into paragraph structure, okay? So paragraphing is very important. Linking devices and transition when you go from one thought to another. If I'm saying one thing and then I have to say the opposite of that, if I don't have on the other hand or conversely or some other linking word over here that shows that what I'm saying now is the opposite of what I've said before, then the meaning will not be clear. And if I am supporting what I've already said with additional evidence, then if I don't say in addition to, also, then again, the transition and the flow is not going to make sense. So make sure you are using these words, these transitions to explain exactly what your different paragraphs stand for. You need to reference words like this, these, it, which. Make sure they use that. What this means is, if I'm using the word this is a typical problem that arises, if I'm starting a sentence like this, then whatever this is referencing to, it needs to be clear, right? This is talking about something that I've just mentioned. If I'm using this over here, but I'm talking about something that happened 3 or 4 lines ago, then it's not going to be clear what this is referencing. So these referencing words need to be used accurately, okay? Next, we have lexical resource. It's the same as speaking, everything that I told you. Same thing applies to writing as well. The only thing is over here, you need to be careful about spellings, which was not an issue in speaking, but that becomes a criteria here in writing, right? You need to get the spellings right. Then we have grammatical range and accuracy, which is, and this should also be number 4. Whoops. All right, and which is also the same as speaking. Everything that we talked about in speaking applies here. Another added issue in writing is punctuation. Just like we had spellings in lexical resource, here we have punctuation as one additional thing that we need to be careful about, which is not an issue in speaking. All right, so these are your 4 criteria for writing. Now that you have a good comprehensive idea of what it is exactly that examiners expect from you, I'm sure you will be able to craft your responses accordingly. This was very necessary, and like I told you, if you want to read about this in much more detail, exactly how examiners read it, then you can just look up IELTS band descriptors online. You will get a PDF. It'll be red and white and it'll have all the bands, the different criteria, and everything that needs to be checked off in that for you to be able to get that particular band. All right. Now, if you find these videos helpful, useful, then obviously don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it with everyone who's trying to do well in the IELTS, and don't forget to follow us on all our socials so you don't miss out on updates, and don't forget to fill that counseling form. I will see you very soon. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.